Okay, so it's a presentation we prepare with Hugo, linked with the field work we have done in Namibia during COSMO-ART. I can say that I'm a little bit stressful to present that because there is a Namibian team inside the room. So yeah, I hope it will be fine. So, but generally I'm not reading my notes, but I will read my notes, to control my stress. Because yes, for sure, I'm stressed to present you the result of this field work. So, introduction. In post-colonial context, the development of local cultural heritage for tourism is often promoted by NGO, state institution and tourism agency as a means of involving local communities in tourism dynamics. Building on this assumption, this presentation examines the extent to which the tourism development of rock art sites actually engage the communities living in proximity to them. And this question is particularly relevant since rock art, largely attributed to pre-colonial period, even if we have seen with Hugo that is not so clear this question of pre-colonial, is a... Yeah. So this question is particularly relevant since rock art is frequently portrayed in official discourses as a form of cultural heritage, especially well suited to fostering community involvement. So the idea is to examine how far it is the case in a region in Namibia. So, no, it's not working, it's not in red. In the Erongo Mountains. Not very good for the stress, these kind of things. Now it is in red. So it's working. Okay, thanks. So where is the Erongo Mountains? So you can see here. Now, yes, for sure, for a geographer, it's not a good map because you don't have the square of Namibia. So let's say it is 3 hours more or less for Windhoek in the northwest. And but we will see in this map more clearly where it is. You can see here it is the Erongo Mountains regarding Namibia. So our presentation is focused on the Erongo Mountains, including Spitskope and Tubusis area, which are very close to Erongo. And our presentation is divided into 3 parts. So the first one will provide context and aims with key elements to understanding how tourism is organized around rock art in this region. Then the second part will describe the different ways in which local communities are involved, and the third part will present factors that explain the differences observed. And in conclusion, if I have still time, or it will be during the question, we will discuss the possible ways of thinking about how to involve local communities more in this tourism dynamics. So when we think about Namibia and rock art, we already spoke about that yesterday and today. We have in mind Tweefelfontein and Brandberg with the White Lady. And there's 2 main places of rock art are in the map. In this map, you can see here the traditional ways that international visitors are doing, arriving in Windhoek, generally going to Etosha Park, then Tweefelfontein, Brandberg, Swakopmund, Sosulwe, before returning to Windhoek. So there's 2 regions, Tweefelfontein and Brandberg. They are part of the traditional offer. It is linked with the way tourism have been developed also in Namibia. So it is a very classical tour that are doing international visitors, because in Namibia you have a very strong power of tourism agency who really will organize the flow of tourism in the same way. More or less, it's very few tourists who are coming, and organize per themselves their trip in Namibia. They are going through a tourism agency. And so here we have Erongo Mountains, and we have some rock art. And before to really analyze how rock art tourism is developed in this region and how communities are involved, some key elements that you have to have in mind. The first one, it is the question of land issues. So here you can see the interior of the mountains, and in blue-gray, it is a commercial land, so mostly owned by the third generation of German. So they are Namibian, but third generation of German. Then you have the communal land. It is the first element that you have to keep in mind. Then the second one, the tourism issue. As I said, here it is the classical way tourists are doing in Namibia. And in blue, it is what starts to appear on the map of tourism for, let's say, the last 10 years. And because it is a shortcut also to go to Etosha, so it is useful for the tourism agency also to organize a trip and to stop in Erongo. And linked with that, we have some places who developed accommodation. So mainly in this area, previously it was farmers, but because of the dry period, they have to start other activities and to develop tourism. So it is also linked with the independence of Namibia. So you have a real change in these mountains where farmers are going into tourism. And mainly in this area, the tourism is focused on fauna and flora and wildlife. But inside also this area, there are some concern about rock art. And I'm coming now to the second point to explain you what kind of rock art tourism you have in this area. So this rock art tourism in this area is linked also with the different status of protection and, let's say, the baptism, if I can take again the metaphor of Hugo, of different places with their statue of protection in the middle of the 20th century. And you have a very large diversity of how rock art is developed, let's say, open for tourism. So, for example, you have Philip's Cave in the Southern Park, where you just paid a fees entrance and then you go alone to visit the site. So it is not a guided tour. You go on your own to visit the cave. Another one, so in Omandumba, you have to stay and to sleep in Omandumba farm to be guided by the owner to the rock art site. And so here, in this way, you have a guide that we can call a local guide, but this guide is not coming from the surrounding on the mountains. It's coming from the northern part of Namibia. So here it is the first question that we can have regarding what does it mean local. And also in Omandumba, you have other rock art sites that you can visit with San people, Chukansi people, with a San Living Museum. And also it's also push us to go through on the restriction on what does it mean local, because this Jukansi people, so they come from Tumkwe, so it is 1,000 kilometers away from this place, and they are doing rotation to perform as a site, to perform their culture and to offer to guide visitors to rock art sites. So again, what does it mean, local communities in this example? Another place in Anibib and Ntemba farm, again, alors, not here, you are allowed to visit the rock art site without to sleep into the lodge. And you are guided also by a guide. Again, what does it mean local in this context? This guide is also coming from the northern part of Namibia. And here in Paula Cave, it's exactly the same as I described just before. And here the guide is coming from the very southern part of Namibia. So again, what does it mean local? And in Ekuta, in the interior of the massif, so it's quite far to reach Ekuta. It's 1 hour and a half to go there from the border of the mountains. You are doing the visit with a local person, the owner. So it is a local community if we consider the criteria of the spatiality. And then just very close for the commercial land, you have the communal land with Tubusis. And so Tubusis, it's a village who really take place and developed as a village the last 40, 50 years. And so with the Damara people. And here you have an offer to visit rock art, let's say a secret offer. It's quite complicated to know that it's possible to visit rock art. And but it's in terms of content and in terms of experience, it's very great. It's just that it's complicated to identify that it's possible to visit rock art. And here it's the building of the project. They have to develop rock art tourism, heritage tourism in this area. But I will come back to this point, to explain you why this project failed. And in Spitzkoppe, so in the communal land, in the Gangu Conservancy, so you have the possibility to camp, or so you have a lodge, and you can visit rock art with local guide. And here, in this context, local guides are coming from the village close to Spitzkoppe. So here, the local, it's more, let's say, in the way we can imagine local when we speak about local communities, people coming from the village. So we can underline at the end of this second part of the presentation that local communities, if we think about the spatiality and the fact to live close to the site, the involvement of this kind of local community is very, very low. It's only Spitzkoppe who meets this criteria to involve local communities. Because in the commercial land, local community, it means people coming from Namibia, but coming from very far from Namibia. So why? So some key factors to explain that, and we totally open for the discussion to complete this analysis. So the first one, of course, it is the land ownership. And the fact that in the communal land, because it is communal, it's more easy to involve local guide in the sense that it is people who are living around. So Tubusi, the guy also is local; he is from the village. But he doesn't explain everything, this situation of land ownership regarding the fact that Spitzkoppe, if we consider Spitzkoppe, regarding Tubusi, Spitzkoppe, you have a much more higher frequency of rock art than Tubusi. So Tubusi, even if it is a communal land, this question of involvement, local guide, is directly linked with the low capacity to promote themselves as a place where you can visit rock art. So it's because this local people, they are very few knowledge about tourism first, and Ancilla underlines the fact that we need to understand tourism in order to develop rock art tourism. And so to be in communal land, it's not enough to involve a local guide. You also have to be trained or to have this use also of tourism to understand what does it mean tourism. It's also the question how the different places are linked with the tourism sector. If I'm coming back to this importance of tour operator in Namibia. So tour operators, they prescribe what you have to do in Namibia to have a nice holiday. If you are not following what the tour operator is saying, it means you will not have nice holiday. So it is the way they sell it. So you have to go to the main flu to come back at home and to say, I have a great holiday in Namibia. So, and linked with this tourism sector, some of the stakeholders, they are very close to tourism sector. And the way also how tourism is shaped in Namibia, the conception that they have of how to involve local communities directly have an influence of how how far the local communities are involved. And another key factor is the question of political support and governance issue. So if you consider Spitskope and Tubusi, so Spitskope, let's say it is the heart of Gangu Conservancy. It is more or less the heart in terms of spatiality, but it is the heart how the conservancy is running. And the main decision are focused on Spitskope development issue. And when we are doing some interviews with Tubusi's people and they explain you how they are involved in the meeting of the conservancy, you can see how strong they are marginalized of the conservancy. And the last point, it's also the question of the owners for the commercial land and the perception they have of potential threats. And it is why also for this commercial land, local communities, it's people who are coming from Namibia, but very far from Erongo Mountains. Because in this area, we spoke a little bit about that yesterday with Karina, with the small minor issues. So in the Erongo Mountains, you also have semi-precious stones. You have a lot of pressure between people living around the commercial land and who are coming inside to mine semi-precious stones. And also some people who are coming inside to poach, voilà, to the poacher who was coming inside. So the owner of the commercial land, they prefer to employ local communities who are coming very far away for the Erongo Mountains in order to protect and to keep secret the way the farm is running, because they're afraid that if local communities from the village are working into the farm as a guide to work outside, they will know how they can also enter more easily into the farm and to do small minings or poacher. I'm not saying that they are doing poacher on the local communities. I'm saying that it is what the owner are thinking, because this issue of poacher, it's much more complex and it's not necessary, or I don't know, people who are coming very close for the commercial and who are doing that, it's much more complex than that. But it is what the owners have in mind. So that's why also you have this San Living Museum with people who are doing rotation from Tsunkwe, because they are local people in the sense of some criteria. And mainly, I have to put it in this word, but for this kind of criteria, local communities, it means Black people. So they are, let's say, in this very big category of Black people. For outsider, let's say, international people who are traveling in Namibia, they fit into the category of local people. So as a tourist, when you are doing this experience, you think you are doing something good because it benefits directly to the local communities. But basically here, the local communities, it's not so local than as we have seen. And this, I already have spoken about that. And I'm coming to the conclusion, so how we can go through on that. This question of training and partnership, and also how to resolve conflict around semi-precious stones. And I hope the PhD thesis of Karina will answer to this question. How to bring people together and to be able to speak together. When you spoke with local community from Tubusis, for example, they said, why we don't have the right to go and to mine on the top of the mountains? And you said, yes, but it is a private land. No, the private land is on the foot of the hill. The top of the hill belongs to everyone. So, this conception also of the ownership, people have to speak about that. So how we can, through our research, bring people together. I'm not naive. I know that it's very difficult, but it's more a wish that I'm doing. That we can help in this way. Thank you so much.
Is there any question in the room?
Any comment from the Namibian team?
So are you also finding in that area the sort of dominance of particular tour operators? So I'll just give you an example. I live in Simonstown, and Tourvest owns one of the restaurants where they own the bus service from the big one that brings most of the guests through that area to Cape Point. They drop them off at a restaurant that they own. They have a gift shop selling aloe vera products, which they own. They have the concession with the city of Cape Town to rent the premium restaurant, which they run, and only open it 4 hours for lunch so that they get their guests in by the busload. And then they go off to Cape Point. So they've sewn up the end-to-end experience of about 70% of the people coming through in about R1 billion a year tourism market through the Sandparks area. Are you seeing something similar in Namibia, where they've got very big marketing clout for the agents back in Europe, bringing the guests into Winter, getting them in there, getting them out there, and maximizing the income that they're getting at all of these data points where they're making money?
Alors, on the Square of Namibia, yes, for sure. Some travel agencies, they also have both some places to accommodate and also some shop, and as you described. From the Erongo, as far as I know, for the Erongo Mountains, but you will correct if necessary, it's only one farm in Etemba who have a lease and an agreement with a tour operator. With a company who is linked with tour operator. So in the Erongo Mountains, it is not so strong as it can be in other parts of Namibia. You agree?
Let me start with a lighter note, Nick. As long as they still come to a Cape Point, I earn my salary, so that's fine. It's paying my salary, so that's okay. I saw one of your images with people in the shelter. Yeah. You've gone too far. Yes, that one. I'm reminded of an uproar that took place in South Africa a good number of years ago with Bushman diorama at Izigo museums, those who are aware of it, because it was considered insulting, obviously, to present people in that particular manner. And I also find it very insulting, to see, people who are fossilized in time and have to perform, in front of these cameras, that are happy to capture their moments without even asking, whether they will want to appear in those images like we are asked here. And I think it's very insensitive, because on a normal day in their lives, those 4 people will not be wearing like that, I would like to think. But they are made to wear.
It is a picture for Tumkwe, where in the normal day.
So, but in informal setup in front of a tourist, they must wear like that. Like like expecting me to wear my eBay shoe, which I'm happy to wear under my own terms, but not happy to wear for someone to throw €2 or $1, for my appreciation. So I think these are things that we should be challenging and questioning. And this is why personally I'm against cultural villages of any kind. We have one inside St. Park's property, which is not managed by us, fortunately, but I still don't support this kind of fake life, being shown to the tourist.
For sure, it raises a lot of issue. So, as you say, it's also in the context of Namibia with the living museum. So it's linked also with the way the tourism has been developed 15 years ago. So you have something like 8 or 9 living museums who are structured by NGOs. When you have a discussion also with people who performed in this museum, in this Sun Living Museum, or in other living museum, for example, the Damara Living Museum close to Tweefelfontein, it's not so simple because on their point of view, it's very clear that you have a distance between what we perform and what is our life. And it is also a way to protect the real way how we are living. And so they see also this as a scene where they perform in the connection with their life. And it is also a way to keep secrets and to in the intimity of the way of life. So, and when you spoke to them also, it's so complicated, this issue, because so when you go in Tumkwe, there is not that much in this area, and this money that they are doing there, it's very helpful for 4 villages. And now there is this reflection in Erongo Mountains, in this farm in Omandumba, to stop this this Sun Museum. Not because of this kind of fossilization, but because too many tourists are coming and it's damaging the road, and it's another issue. But if they are doing that, how these 4 villages in Tumkwe, they will organize themselves, to go further of this very high comment on dit? Decrease of their income, because through this income, it really allowed 4 villages to live all the year because of the system of the rotation. But for sure, it's also the question, perhaps they can perform in another way their culture and explain differently their culture. And this, it's very also complicated because you also have to be attractive for tour operator. As I said, tourism agencies are very, very strong in Namibia, much more than they are in South Africa. And if you are not fit into their criteria of authenticity, I agree with you, it doesn't make any sense in this context. But if you are not going into their criteria, you are not part of what they are selling. So it means also is this huge issue of tourism and impact and incomes coming from tourism, as Ansila said and other people also said, we need also to be pragmatic, and these people, they also need some incomes. So I agree with you at some point, but at the other point, I just would like to underline that it is a very complex situation, and you can't say it is like this or like this, and you have to negotiate between different versions, and it's not so easy.
I'm just going to throw my 2 cents worth in on this. So as a lot of people will probably know, the Komani have a history of dressing up for tourists, going back to Kakakama, Ostrasan. There's various farms they've performed on. They get taken down to Cape Town to perform for tourists by government, and they perform in the Kalahari. Some Komani don't want to dress up in these traditional clothes. Others do. So when we have tourists, it's up to the individuals what they want to wear. But some tourists specifically want tour guides dressed like this. In the Kalahari, it's different from the Living Museum. So when you go to well, certainly the Living Museum I was at, was I think at the Little Hunters one near Chumkway. They're very clear that this isn't how they dress in modern day. So the first day they dress like this. We camped with them for 3 days. So the first day they dress like this. The next day they're kind of half dressed traditionally. The third day they're just dressed normal. And then they also took us to where they live now to see how they live and how they don't live in the traditional huts that they showed us earlier. So a lot of the living museums are quite clear that's not how they live. At Chumkway, there are other villages, though, where they do pretend that's how they still live, because you see them running around the back to get changed. But if you say, is this how you dress? They say, oh, yes, yes, yes. But clearly it's not. Likewise with the Komani. So the Komani just dress normally like that picture you saw at Chumkway village. But some crafters go and stand at the side of the road and sell crafts. Now, most of the crafters will be dressed in traditional skins, but not all of them. But the ones that dress up sell more crafts than the ones that don't dress up. But that aside, the other point I just want to make is, for some of them, and I would say most of them actually choose to dress. It's not seen as something they just do for tourism, although they do it for tourism. It's something that is part of them. And they're proud to wear their traditional clothes. And they're proud to have the opportunity to wear the traditional clothes. So it is very complex. But I also wonder what you're also hinting at as well. And it's linked to what I was saying yesterday, I think, about poverty. So while they're proud to wear their traditional clothes and while they quite like doing it, I often wonder that if they didn't need this money, would they actually do it? You know, even if they don't mind doing it, would they do it? We don't know. So it is very difficult, and it varies within different groups. But for the Komani at the moment, and when I was at Chumkway as well, and I think we also have to be careful not to, what's the word, like, you know, not to let our own perceptions affect how we think they feel about dressing like that. Or, these people are getting their photos taken, yes, but it is an understanding that if you pay to go to the Living Museum and if you perform at the Living Museum, you will have your photos taken. At the stalls, the Komani stalls, that is not a foregone agreement. When they're standing at Komani stalls, if you want to take their photo, you have to ask. So that's a bit different. But yeah, I think we just have to be careful not to project. That was the word I was thinking of. Project a kind of, in a way, almost a Western view of. We've had people before in the Kalahari. It's difficult because I have seen people leering as well. It's, some of the women maybe don't wear tops, but it's difficult.
Last question, Hugo. Question from Namibian team.
Okay, I'm not sure if it's a question or a comment, but just 2 observations. The first one is on the what we are discussing now, the traditional outfits. And my example has been when we visit the living museums, especially the Damara Living Museum near 12-Fontaine. If we are to go now as a group of cultural practitioners, they will introduce themselves by saying, we are wearing these to demonstrate our ancestors' practices. We don't live like this. Whereas if the bigger German or white tourists start to go there, they present themselves as we live like this. And they explain it to us to say that the more authentic you are, the more tips you get. So that's they are doing it deliberately in a way. And then on my second point is on the income generation. I was just wondering if you were able to trace how much of that money is going to local Namibians, as you clearly explain, because I'm wondering if someone spends 50,000 to fly from Germany and to that is the budget, is 50,000. What percentage of that money is going to the local tour guide? Because I'm asking that because most of the tour companies are owned by Germans and South Africans based on our history. And the challenge then is how much of that money is going to Namibians and also to the government. Because when we introduced the visa on arrival, the tour companies, because I'm on some of the tourist groups, they were complaining that it's going to damage our tourism. They were going on, and these are the white tour operators and the owners. And then in the first month of April, the government made about 24 Namibian dollars. And I was just calculating, sorry? Yes, 24 million Namibian dollars. And I was just calculating if that trend went on up to November, would be at 192 million. And that is one of the little portion that the government is getting, because even from the 50,000, the government is only getting the smaller portion of tax, tourism levy, which probably comes down to 1.5 if it's a lot. So I'm just wondering then, if you were able to maybe get some statistics from those figures, how much are they getting locals?
So to answer to you, the first comment, here in the Sun Living Museum, they are not saying at the beginning, we perform today as our ancestor performed. You don't have this introduction as you have in Tamara near Tweefelfontein. So it is also an issue, and it's also linked with what Ndukuyake said. If you are starting the narrative with that, it changes everything. So this, it is not the case in Sun Living Museum. For the figures and the statistic on the national level, I'm not able to answer. What I'm able to answer, it's about this particular example of Sun Living Museum and how it's going directly to Jukansi people. But as I'm not very good to remind numbers, I give the mic to Hugo, which murmurs better than me. CCT.
Well, it's about 10 years of income. I don't remember exactly, but if you want the information, I got it in my computer.
No, in terms of percentage.
The percentage is easy. It's 60% goes to the performers, 20% is going to the landowner, and 20% is going to the conservancy. So it's Umkwe. Yeah, so 60%. And you've got about like 80% performing, 80% performing every year, like different groups. So yeah, you can easily do the equation.
And also in terms of income, you have to consider the handcraft that they are doing, because each group where they are coming, they sell their handcraft, and there is no percentage coming to another person. The person who have done the handcraft takes the money. So, and they also use the rotation to sell the handcraft for the member of the family who stay at home. So it's also by this way that it benefits for the 4 villages.